Jasbir Singh Romana, thank you for joining in on CNN News 18. For the benefit of all our viewers, Jasbir is the prime time talk show host on radio Sher Punjab in Vancouver, Canada. A very warm welcome to you, Jasbir. Now, let me cut to the chase. There was a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, and Canada's Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc has deferred questions about the failure of the Canadian police to provide protection to Nijjar despite credible intelligence from Canada's intelligence service, or as we also know, CSIS. Has Prime Minister Trudeau and his administration failed to address internal security lapses?
Well, that press conference that you are mentioning, that happened right after Mr. Trudeau's statement. And this is a very much, a sort of custom not to contradict Prime Minister, not to give too many details in Canada. To us, it appears normal because ministers, they don't give you many details. Even Prime Minister, he tends to hide whatever he has said, even though next day, the opposition party, the leader, federal conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, he demanded that we need to know more. If Prime Minister knows more, people need to know more, and he should give us more details about the whole episode and what kind of information he has. It has created a lot of confusion. So if CSIS is a sort of high-profile, Canadian Security Intelligence Agency, if they have information they have given to Prime Minister, we people in general or RCMP at the ground level, investigating agencies, they need to know more. So that was the demand right after that.
But the question that they are also digressing from is that why was Canadian police, despite intelligence inputs from CSIS, failed to protect Nijjar? Because remember, Nijjar was fearing for his life, and yet he could not be protected.
There are two aspects to your question. One is that in Canada, nobody gets the security like that, the one we get in India. Secondly, yes, I do agree with you that yesterday, actually, Mr. Nijjar's son, 21 years old, Balraj Nijjar, he was talking to some local media and saying that my dad used to meet CSIS people, security people, once or twice a week, right after February. And in last few months, he was meeting more than that. And actually, 2 days before the death, he met CSIS. So they were advising him to stay home. That's what his lawyer, Mr. Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, Six for Justice lawyer, he says that Mr. Nijjar was my buddy, and he used to talk to him about the security concerns and all that. So CSIS was telling him to stay home, not to go to Gurdwara, and not to go to the places on a fixed time and avoid the crowds. But his son says that my dad chose to keep his routine work like usual.
And that stands out, the fact that he could not be protected. But Jasbir, what's the overall sentiment within the immigrants in Canada, especially Indians and Sikhs? Do they feel unsafe?
I wouldn't say that, but overall sentiment is when Prime Minister of Canada gets up in the Parliament and says something serious like that, people tend to believe that. We don't ask questions like that right after that, but next day, the politics comes in. Next day, people start asking that we need more details. And next day, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is saying that we don't want to provoke India. Probably he already did. If he doesn't have enough proofs, if he doesn't have enough grounds to say those things what he said already.
Do you think he's jumped the gun? Do you think he's jumped the gun before an internal investigation, reaching completion, making such a strong allegation against a country? Don't you think it has been an impulsive and a knee-jerk reaction? That too after a very airy visit to India during G20.
Today's headlines in our national dailies, one of them I just read, says that if it's true, this is the very first time India, through certain state actors, killed somebody on the foreign lands. If it's true, that's a big question. If it's true, if it's proven. But talking about Mr. Trudeau's G20 visit to India, before that, he was lagging behind in the polls. In the summertime, there were so many polls that he's 14% behind the Federal Conservative Party. So having said that, it's a post-pandemic era that we are going through, and post-pandemic and that vaccination and all those things are gone past. So people are talking about now the affordability. People are talking about housing. Youngsters especially. The young voter in 2015 was the main voter for Mr. Trudeau. So he's been in power for 8 years. He was young. He was a movie star like appearance. He came from the third place to the top, and he became prime minister with the support of the youngsters. But now that youngster is 8 years old now. Those youngsters are about to get houses, which they can't afford. And we have overdose deaths happening. 6 or 7 people are getting killed every day. So there's so many other issues. The genuine issues. They were opposition was asking, especially the intervention by Chinese government. That was the biggest issue in the last few months, which Mr. Trudeau gets accused that he didn't do anything. Opposition was saying that there's an intervention happening. Chinese background MPs were saying that intervention happening. There were certain accusations that Chinese government is holding police stations in Canada. But Trudeau government didn't do anything. Public inquiry was being asked time and again, but he didn't pay attention. But this is very surprising that he comes back from India after G20 and he says this in the parliament. That's pretty surprising. And everybody's
That's a very valid point that you've raised, because in July, remember, Justin Trudeau also reshuffled his cabinet amid issues of inflation and a housing crisis, something you've just mentioned. How bad is the situation for the common man? Not to forget, is this also placing Trudeau on shaky grounds?
Many months, about 8-9 months or maybe more, interest rate is going up. And chances are that next month, interest rate is going up again. So affordability is the biggest issue. You have to have $286,000 income to afford a house, to begin in this housing market, which is totally unaffordable for the youngsters, the beginners. So, there's no solution for that. There's no quick solution for that. We don't have enough inventory. And that's what he make announcement that the municipalities the ones who can't provide housing, the ones who can't provide housing license and all that, we will punish those. And similarly, he has said recently that grocery prices are going up, household budget is going up, so we have to fix big grocery chains and we have to punish them as well in his own ways, with making some new.
Let me try and join the dots over here. Because when we talk about Hardeep Singh Nijjar, he was one of the most wanted terrorists with an Interpol notice that was issued back in the year 2016. What explains the Canadian government's support to the Khalistan extremism?
Khalistan extremism, guess not. But one thing nobody can deny, and everybody's talking about that, is that...
is it not extremism if you see a float in Brampton which is celebrating the assassination of a former Indian Prime Minister? Is this not supporting? Is this not supporting extremism?
Akansha ji, right from the beginning, from 2015, pro-Sikh, pro-Khalistan vote was for Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Trudeau is born in a prime minister's house, by the way. His dad was prime minister as well. So people feel indebted to senior Trudeau because he opened the gates for immigration. So this younger Trudeau, for some mysterious reasons, is inclined towards the pro-Khalistan people. Now, answering your question, Khalistanis were okay as long as they go by the rules, because asking for a Khalistan is not crime in India as well. Mr. Jasbir Singh Romana is sitting in Punjab and he talks about Khalistan once in a while, sitting as his own home and doing nothing is acceptable. But over here, it's going a little bit too much now. They are like they said, your freedom ends where my nose begins. This is becoming nuisance nowadays.
And when you are saying it becomes nuisance, I come to my last question. As a radio talk show host, I'm sure you've had several interactions on ground level. As someone who has personally witnessed the planning for an open referendum from close quarters, share your concerns and why do you believe that the Khalistan movement is gaining a wider global push?
Again, for some mysterious reasons, the people from India, people from Punjab, we love India, we love Punjab. But out of that love comes, advice that we want to pass it to you guys, that do this, that's wrong, politics is wrong, corruption is there in India, blah, blah, blah. Those kind of, subjects are always discussed in my shows. Secondly, there's so many factors that can be held responsible for this. ISI is the one of them. There's so many, different invisible forces are playing a role here. And, the other thing is the immigration lawyers, international students, the ones who are at the verge of being deported. And there's so many other people, they think this is a good refuge to talk about Khalistan and get some sort of compensation, some sort of benefits out of that. And immigration lawyers are being blamed for that. Especially, I wouldn't name them, but yes, they tell their clients that this is the way to go. If you curse India, if you prove that going to India is not safe for you, you have a case in Canada. So this is one thing. But why Trudeau is in love with these people? Because he needs them. Mr. Modi came here. He's supposed to be very close to Stephen Harper and Federal Conservative Party. And similarly, Donald Trump is facing 4 criminal charges in America, but his popularity is not going down. He's doing really good. Now, people are talking about in political arena, if he becomes the candidate again, that will bring oxygen for the opposition party in Canada as well. So that probably frightens Trudeau. Trudeau's lagging behind in 14%, so he needs some oxygen. So oxygen comes from these elements.
Very well said. On that note, you spoke about so much that's common between India and Canada. Will these tense diplomatic relations between the two nations impact the deep-rooted people-to-people connections, trade and economic ties?
Trade, yes. Yesterday, I was talking to one of our former MP, Mr. Gurmant Garewal, 3-time MP, and he gave us a huge, historical report that our relations were never good with India, Canada. We mostly thrive on NATO countries or most of the trade we do with the United States. But India is very important as far as Ukraine and Russia situation is concerned. India has gained a lot of respect in G20. India's Modi, you can criticize him for 1,000 reasons, but people can't deny that India is not the India used to be 40 years back. So we can sense that local politicians, they never mentioned India in any of the gatherings over here, and we felt really bad in those days. Nowadays, we feel proud that India has become a power. It's the 5th biggest economy in the world, and America needs India, Russia needs India, Ukraine needs India. In that scenario, I would say that I guess Trudeau's, whatever he said, now he will be trying to fix this problem, which probably is not fixable.
Which, as you rightly mentioned, was very apparent from those conflicting statements that have come in from the Canadian Prime Minister. And of course, he's been left scouting for support from US and UK. Let's see how he manages to come up with that quick fix. It's an unfolding story. We will keep tracking it.
But one thing I want to add, if you allow me to.
Sure, Jasbir.
Punjabi diaspora, Indian diaspora, we don't like... Personally, I don't like Khalistan. Most of my listeners, yesterday I opened the lines, they are not for Khalistan. But they also don't like certain India media outlets or social media spokespeople. They're very sharp, criticizing our government over here. And they are over and above attacks on Khalistanis, we don't bother about Khalistanis. They can do whatever they want, but we don't agree with them. Like they say, let's agree to disagree with them. Over here, everything happens very calmly. But in India, when that kind of stuff happens, there's a bombardment of attacks from different directions. That is kind of, like I heard on social media.
No, but perhaps in India also, the government is concerned and vexed by the inaction of the Trudeau government, because we all know what's happening in Punjab has a direct connection with what's happening in Canada. So, and the Indian government is also now being faced with that conundrum of trying to sort of control the situation in Punjab, which till this year has been very deeply problematic. And I'm sure
I understand that. I understand that part. No, I do understand that part. I'm talking about when Mr. Nijjar got killed. There were so many Indian media outlets saying that, not media outlets, but the social media people talking like, okay, now we have killed this person, let's go and kill them. That kind of narrative is not acceptable to the people like even me. We think we can make better judgments for ourselves. We are not for Khalistan. We always wish a better India, a stronger India. But there's no simple answer to this whole situation that we are in nowadays.
Absolutely. I mean, we all hope that eventually peace does prevail. And on that note, both the countries are able to restore the important and crucial aspects of this relationship that India and Canada share, which is, of course, the people-to-people ties and the flourishing trade and economic relations. On that note, many thanks to you, Jasbir Singh Romana. Wish you the very best. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.